In the small town of Millfield, nestled deep in the woods, the legend of the Hollow Man had been told for generations. The story goes that a wandering spirit, cursed by betrayal and consumed by vengeance, roams the dense forest at night. His hollow eyes are said to pierce through the souls of the living, his hollow laughter echoing through the trees, sending chills down the spines of anyone who dares to be outside after dark. For years, the legend was a mere bedtime story, a ghostly tale to spook children into staying indoors at night. But as with all legends, there were those who believed in it fervently. It was a crisp October night, just days before Halloween, when a group of teenagers, bored and looking for a thrill, decided to challenge the legend. Mark, the leader of the group, was known for his daring antics and his relentless pursuit of excitement. With him were his best friends, Sarah, Tom, and Emily. They had grown up together, sharing countless adventures, but nothing quite like what they were about to undertake. "Come on, guys," Mark said, his eyes gleaming with excitement. "We've been talking about it for years. Let's finally do it. Let's spend the night in the woods and see if the Hollow Man really exists." Sarah, always the cautious one, hesitated. "What if something goes wrong? What if the legend is true?" Tom laughed, slapping Sarah on the back. "It's just a story, Sarah. There's no such thing as ghosts. And even if there were, we're together. We'll be fine." Emily, ever the thrill seeker, grinned. "I'm in. Let's make this night one to remember." The group agreed to meet at the edge of the woods just before midnight, armed with flashlights, sleeping bags, and a sense of invincibility that only teenagers possess. The night was colder than expected, and a thick fog had settled over Millfield, adding an eerie atmosphere to their adventure. The group gathered at the designated spot, their breath visible in the cold air. "All right, everyone ready?" Mark asked, his voice barely a whisper. The others nodded, and with a collective sense of nervous excitement, they ventured into the woods. The trees loomed tall and menacing, their branches like skeletal fingers reaching out to snatch intruders. The only sound was the crunching of leaves beneath their feet and the occasional hoot of an owl. After what felt like hours, they reached a small clearing where they decided to set up camp. The moonlight filtered through the trees, casting long shadows that danced and flickered as the wind rustled the leaves. "This is perfect," Mark said, setting down his backpack. "Now, who wants to tell the first ghost story?" Tom, always the joker, volunteered. He had planned a little scare of his own to kick off the night. "All right, gather around," he said, his voice low and dramatic. "This is the story of the Hollow Man." He began to recount the legend, embellishing the details with gruesome descriptions and ominous warnings. As he spoke, he subtly reached into his backpack, pulling out a small remote control. Unbeknownst to the others, he had set up a small speaker in the bushes earlier that evening. "And then," Tom whispered, "the Hollow Man appeared, his hollow eyes glowing in the darkness." At that moment, he pressed the button, and a low, guttural laugh echoed through the clearing. Sarah screamed, Emily jumped, and even Mark looked momentarily startled. "Gotcha!" Tom laughed, revealing the remote control. Sarah punched him in the arm, half laughing, half annoyed. "You jerk! You scared us half to death!" Emily shook her head, smiling. "Nice one, Tom, but remember, payback's a bitch." Despite Tom's prank, a sense of unease settled over the group. The fog seemed to thicken and the temperature dropped further. They huddled closer together, their laughter becoming more forced as the night wore on. As they sat around the campfire, Mark glanced around nervously. "Anyone else feel like we're being watched?" Sarah shivered, pulling her jacket tighter around her. "Now that you mention it, yeah. It's like there's something out there just beyond the trees." Tom, trying to shake off the growing fear, scoffed. "Come on, guys, it's just the woods. It's probably a deer or something." But even Tom couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The laughter from his earlier prank seemed to linger in the air, growing more menacing with each passing minute. Determined to lighten the mood, Emily decided it was her turn to prank the group. She excused herself, claiming she needed to use the bathroom, and slipped away into the trees. She had brought a white sheet with her, planning to dress up as a ghost and give the others a good scare. As she moved further into the woods, she found a spot where she could change without being seen. She draped the sheet over herself and started to make her way back to the camp, but as she walked, she noticed something strange. The fog seemed to swirl around her, growing denser, and the trees seemed to close in, their branches like claws reaching out to grab her. She shook off the feeling and continued on, trying to focus on her prank. But then she heard it, a soft, hollow laugh, faint but unmistakable. Her heart pounded in her chest as she turned, looking for the source of the sound. There was nothing, just the thick fog and the looming trees. "Get a grip, Emily," she muttered to herself. "It's just your imagination." But the laugh came again, louder this time, and closer. She started to run, her breath coming in short, panicked gasps. She tripped over a root, falling hard to the ground. As she scrambled to her feet, she saw a shadow moving through the fog. A tall, dark figure with hollow eyes that seemed to glow in the darkness. With a scream, she tore off the sheet and ran back to the camp, her heart racing. When she burst into the clearing, the others jumped to their feet, their faces pale with fear. "Emily, what happened?" Mark asked, grabbing her by the shoulders. "There's something out there," she gasped. "Something real. I saw it. The Hollow Man." The group was silent, the weight of Emily's words sinking in. The fear in her eyes was genuine, and it was contagious. Mark, trying to stay calm, looked around at his friends. "We need to stay together. Whatever's out there, we can't let it scare us." Tom, his earlier bravado gone, nodded. "Yeah, let's just stick close and wait until morning." They huddled together, their eyes darting nervously into the darkness. The night seemed to stretch on endlessly, the sounds of the forest growing more ominous with each passing minute. The laughter that had once been a harmless prank now felt like a harbinger of something far more sinister. As the hours dragged on, the tension became unbearable. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig sent waves of panic through the group. Finally, Mark couldn't take it anymore. "This is ridiculous," he said, standing up. "We can't just sit here all night, scared out of our minds. I'm gonna find out what's going on." Sarah grabbed his arm. "Mark, no, it's too dangerous." But Mark shook her off. "We can't let fear control us. I'm going to prove that there is nothing out there." With a flashlight in hand, he started to walk into the woods. The others watched, their hearts in their throats, as he disappeared into the darkness. The minutes ticked by, each one feeling like an eternity. Then, suddenly, they heard it. A scream, loud and filled with terror, echoing through the trees. "Mark!" Sarah cried, running towards the sound. Tom and Emily followed, their flashlights cutting through the fog. They found Mark lying on the ground, his face pale and his eyes wide with fear. "It was real!" he whispered, his voice shaking. "The Hollow Man! He's real!" Panic set in as they helped Mark to his feet. The realization that the legend was true, that they were being hunted by a vengeful spirit, was too much to bear. They ran through the woods, their flashlights bobbing wildly, the laughter of the Hollow Man following them like a dark, mocking shadow. The forest seemed to close in around them, the trees twisting and turning, disorienting them. They stumbled and fell, their fear driving them forward even as exhaustion threatened to overtake them. The laughter grew louder, closer, until it felt like it was right behind them. Finally, they burst out of the woods, collapsing onto the ground at the edge of Millfield. They were safe, but the terror of the night lingered, the hollow laughter echoing in their minds. In the days that followed, the group struggled to come to terms with what had happened. They told their story to anyone who would listen, but most dismissed it as a prank gone wrong, a figment of their imagination. But they knew the truth. The Hollow Man was real, and he was watching. Mark, Sarah, Tom, and Emily made a pact never to speak of that night again, but the fear never left them. It lingered in the corners of their minds, haunting their dreams and shadowing their every move. They avoided the woods, but the sense of being watched persisted. The final night. It was a year to the day since their ill-fated adventure. The group decided to meet one last time, hoping that facing their fear together might offer some closure. They gathered at Mark's house, the tension palpable. "We have to end this," Mark said, his voice trembling. "We have to face him." Reluctantly, they agreed. As night fell, they made their way to the edge of the woods, armed with flashlights and a desperate hope that they could confront the Hollow Man and put an end to their torment. The forest was as menacing as ever, the fog thick and suffocating. They moved cautiously, every snap of a twig making their hearts race. And then they heard it, the hollow laugh echoing through the trees. "Show yourself!" Mark shouted, his voice cracking. "We're not afraid of you." The laughter grew louder, and a shadowy figure emerged from the fog. The hollow man, his eyes glowing with an eerie light, stood before them. His hollow laughter filled the air, a sound of pure malice and triumph. If like my video, please subscribe my channel and press the bell icon and never miss any new videos.